Recognize that the beliefs that you hold, regardless of where they came from, the beliefs that you hold now, you hold by choice. And any beliefs that you continue to hold that do not serve you, you continue to hold by choice. And any beliefs that do serve you, that you're not holding, you can choose to have. So here's the magic words. Hi, friend, and welcome to this episode of the New Humans for New Earth podcast. I'm Queenie, your host, and on this podcast, we discuss the great transition to New Earth that we are all living through today. Here, we introduce you to wisdom, perspectives, and information to support and inspire you in making more aligned choices in your life. We're here to help co-create New Earth, so let's talk about it. Before we dive into this episode, thank you for taking a moment to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. In this moment of great transition, messages of hope, love, kindness, compassion, and unity, and stories about people who are helping to build a better future are so important. Hitting subscribe is a free and easy way to help this podcast reach others like you who are here to help co-create New Earth. From my heart to yours, thank you. There's this theme that's been sort of emerging in the past few episodes that caught my attention. I want to take today's episode to sort of speak into it. And this theme is this theme of there being a distance that needs to be sort of crossed, right? So whether it be the distance between living in your mind and living in your heart, or the distance between sort of eating a more conventional diet and eating a more plant-based diet, right? Or even the distance between wanting to believe that something like New Earth is possible and actually believing it in just the deepest part of your being. And you may have noticed this theme as well. And I think more importantly, you may have said to yourself, well, that's really nice, Queenie, but how do I cross that distance? How do I traverse this space? How do I get from being in a place of hope and despair, being in a place where all I see is evidence that there is no hope, that we're headed towards disaster? And how do I sort of if that's what I'm seeing, how is it that I'm supposed to be living in this place of hope, of heart-centeredness, of this vision of New Earth so that I can be a co-creator of it? How can I be a co-creator of something that doesn't feel real or possible to me? Even taking a step back from that massive project of co-creating New Earth, you can ask this same question in sort of smaller aspects of your life, right? Whether it be getting that new job, finding that perfect living situation, figuring out how to get from a place where you feel kind of sad all the time to a place where you feel content and even joyful, right? How do I traverse that distance? How do I live in a world where miracles happen, where magic happens, when what I see is, what we might call ordinary mainstream reality? Do I have to be delusional to believe in this kind of stuff? And I think, this might resonate for you more if you're sort of like just setting out on your journey. If you're just waking up, you might be like, this all sounds real nice, Queenie, but you sound delusional to me. I'm like, welcome to the party. And so if you're listening to these episodes and you're having that kind of reaction, or if you're wanting your life to be different in some way and feeling like it's just not working, you just don't know where to begin. Or if you're like, hey, I'm on board intellectually with New Earth, but like, I just don't see it. I want to offer you in this episode, like the words that changed my life as far as this goes, right? Whether it be personal transformation, whether it be achieving some goal, or whether it be contributing as a co-creator to New Earth. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So if you've been around the spiritual space at all, if you've been paying attention to the spiritual conversation at all, you've probably come across this concept that the universe is just a mirror, right? Reality just mirrors back to you what it is that's going on inside you. What you expect to see is exactly what you're going to see. Maybe you can resonate. Maybe, I mean, I think we've all had this experience in at one time or another, right? Where we're looking around at other people and it's like, it just seems like maybe they've kind of gotten on to something that we don't understand yet. A really palpable experience that I had with this was when I first went to Burning Man. There's like this almost like unspoken kind of inside joke that everyone at Burning Man who's been to Burning Man before is kind of in on. And if it's your first time and you haven't quite like picked up on what it is, it's kind of like you're kind of looking around and you're like, I can tell something, like I'm just not picking up on something. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I can tell that like there is some layer to this that I am just not getting. There's something that's really similar that happens as well if you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are very heart-centered, but you're not quite there yet. And there's almost this like way of speaking and interacting that those people have because they live in their hearts that in that case you don't have. Almost feels like you're talking two different languages. And again, there's this like sense of I'm not in on something. I'm missing something that's happening. There is like this level or this layer of this interaction that I'm just not picking up on. And if you're that person, and I've experienced this too, right? There's almost this like inclination to be like to ask yourself, what is going on with these people? Like, are they faking whatever this is? Right? Like if you don't understand, if you don't feel the reality of what it is that they're living in, then there's this inclination to sort of look at that, to perceive it, and to say, that's fake. That is some sort of put on affect. I don't know why these people are doing it. Maybe they think it's like cooler, it makes them better than me somehow, right? This is like the ego starting to pop up. I don't know. I don't know if I like it. I feel like I don't belong here. These people are weird, right? Like this is sort of if you ever see sort of like spiritual people hanging out with non-spiritual people, like this is kind of like the oil and water thing that happens. Not always, but it can. And you may be having a very similar reaction to me, right? Like if you're deep in despair and hopelessness, if you're just like drowning in sort of like doomcore on the internet. I mean, I don't know if that's a thing yet, but I might have just made up a new hashtag right now, but like if that's what you're surrounded with, if you're just like immersed in all of the news and memes about how people are destroying the planet, then you might be hearing me talk about New Earth and talk about this transition and talk about like all of the sort of hope in the people who are working to build a better planet and think like, gosh, Queenie, like, I like you, but get with the program, girl. But remember that our realities reflect to us what's going on inside of us. We see in the external world what it is that we expect to see. We pick up on the things that we're looking for. I mean, there's this concept of confirmation bias, right? And, that's kind of constantly operating in our minds, and we may or may not be aware of that. Something in my own life that I've had to kind of come to grips with is, I was noticing that when I sort of looked at a situation, I would see the thing that was wrong. And when people would ask me, like, how are you? I'd be like, well, I mean, great, except for this one thing, you know? And it's just kind of a bummer. It's just kind of a bummer to be around like that person who's always like pointing out the thing. And like, frankly, it's kind of a bummer to be the person who's always noticing the thing, And I had to realize that that was me and where my mind was going, what my mind was picking out, what my mind was choosing to focus on. And so, something that I've practiced and done some work with like microdosing psilocybin to help with, and that is not the magic that I'm getting to. It's not take plant medicine, but something that I needed to do was reprogram my mind to say, hey, Queenie, there's a bajillion things about the situation that are going right. Maybe you could focus on those things. Maybe you could look for those. Maybe you could think to comment on those things before you say the thing that's not right about the situation. And also, we can have some compassion about just how your brain works right now, and that's okay. So, if we can take to heart this idea that the universe is a mirror, and if we can also remember that this universe contains infinite possibility, that means that whatever it is that you're seeing that is a reflection of what's going on inside of you, there's nothing necessary about that. And just let that sink in. There is nothing necessary about the reality that you are seeing. And that might be a little bit of a stretch for some folks, but the corollary, if we want to use a big word, the corollary of the universe just reflects at you what's going on inside of you is that as you change, as your insides change, as your perceptions and your expectations change, as you do some work on yourself, what you see out in the world will also shift. And that includes the possibilities for the future. That includes sort of what you like, where you see us in the collective project of co-creating New Earth. That includes the perspective or the attitude or the flavor, if that makes sense, to like that you see the current situation in, right? Because for sure, you can look out at this moment and say, oh my gosh, I see chaos, I see destruction, I see division, I see hatred still, I see violence. Yeah. Or you could say, I see all kinds of people waking up. I see all kinds of people asking, what can I do? I see all kinds of people who are saying, I realize now that we cannot keep going this way. How else can we do this? How else can we organize? How else can we think about our relationship to each other and the planet? How can we do this different? And you can see that groundswell of people who are wanting to do that work, who see just the miracle that this existence is. It's there to be seen as well. I think one of the things that makes this kind of work feel so obscure is that the beliefs and the attitudes and the expectations that sort of define our worldview sometimes are like so deeply embedded in just how we perceive and actually even our internal experience that they're like nearly invisible. And so because they're so hard to see, they can be really hard to like notice and realize like, oh, that's something that needs to be shifted, right? And this is one of the powers of sacred medicine is that it can help you see these things or even like help you help rejigger, if you will, like your worldview in such a way that you don't actually actively intellectually have to see it. It's just that it shifts for you. Take that for what you will. But remember, there's nothing necessary about the particular beliefs, expectations, or attitudes that are like built into our worldview, right? Those were all uploaded into you like during your lifetime, as during the course of your biography. I had an experience with ayahuasca that like really drove this home for me. So I mentioned it a little bit ago about how, I had this sort of predisposition of noticing the thing that was wrong. And I had this one ayahuasca ceremony where it was like over and over again, I was having this experience as though I were being presented with existence for the first time, right? If you can imagine just being pure consciousness and that experience of, hey, here it is. Hey, here it is. And what that exercise sort of helped me see was that there was this inclination in that moment to say, no, right? Like the built-in attitude in me to being confronted with existence. Nothing necessarily was happening, right? It was just, I am conscious, there is existence, and I am aware of it. And what that helped me to see was that I can actually choose to respond to this reality and to my awareness of it as a gift. Rather than saying no, I can say yes. Rather than saying no, thank you, I can say yes, please. Again, it's like that's such a subtle thing that I don't know that I could have gotten there without the help of sacred medicine. I'm not necessarily proposing that you should, but I'm just sharing my experience. But I think to kind of come back to something that feels a little maybe more relatable is like, or a little more concrete. I think it's uncontroversial to say that we know that humans get programmed. We know that we get trained into a particular worldview, right? And if you are just like starting out on your journey and you're like, we do, then I recommend that you read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. If anyone is listening to this podcast and you have not read The Four Agreements, like I consider that to be required reading for anyone that's remotely awake. So I'll have a link to that book in the show notes, but like this book is, I think it's like a perpetual bestseller. So I'm sure you can find a used copy online in a thrift store, wherever, right? But there will be a link in the show notes. But we know that humans are programmed, right? Through our parents, through schooling, right? We also know through advertising, through the media. I don't know if that's like kind of enough of the conversation, right? Like we're very aware of the fact that in advertising, like a company's trying to tell you that like you have a problem, they can solve it, right? And suddenly you're like, well, shoot, do I have this problem? Do I need this product? Right? That's a very coarse, unrefined sort of example of this. But I think it's even more, I don't want to say insidious, but that's the word that's coming to mind. It can be even more insidious in media. Consider like what movies and television tell you about what a human life looks like. Consider what it shows you about what your day should look like, what your home should look like, what kinds of things you should be like, like, are you noticing all the shoulds right now, right? But like, what kinds of things you should aim for in life, where you should be preoccupied or what you should be preoccupied with. Job, romantic relationship, marriage issues, probably status in some way, probably going to have some, I don't know, whatever. But the point is that these portrayals tell us what it is that our lives should look like. And if we don't question it, if we just sort of absorb that, which of course we will, particularly if when we're children and we don't know any better. Oh, this is what humans do? This is what grown-ups do? I can't wait to do that when I'm older, right? It's like these portrayals, these images act as almost this like limiting, defining structure on what it is that we think is possible in our lives. And we just end up like in these little mazes, sort of like trying to get to the satisfaction of these situations that television and movies set up for us. Oh, I got the dream job. I wasn't happy. Oh, I bought that car. It goes really fast. It looks nice, but I still wasn't happy. I got the girl or the guy. And then I still wasn't happy, right? Here's something else that I do think is insidious. Is like there are so many portrayals of romantic relationship where if you look at it right, like you will see that it's just codependence. Like the form of romantic relationship that we have been sold over and over and over again is codependence. And I actually believe that look, there's all kinds of different romantic relationship structures, right? And all kinds of different dynamics that you can be in. But if you are looking for your happiness in someone else, if you are looking to someone else to make you happy, you are setting both y'all up for failure in my mind, right? But then we have all these portrayals of unhappy marriage and marriage's challenge, right? Which just normalizes that dysfunction. It's wild, right? Whereas if we were to take a moment and say, is this belief that I have around what relationship is and what it looks like and what it should be doing for me, is that a belief that I want to hold? Is that a belief that's serving me? Is that a belief that is serving me? And if it's not, what do I do? And I think asking that question is a really great place to start. Is that belief serving me? Is it serving me to believe that we're on a doom train and there is no stopping it? Is it serving me to believe that this despair and hopelessness, there's no alternative to it? Is it serving me to believe that the future is just destruction? How does that feel in your body? One of the things that's become so clear to me is that feeling dysregulated, feeling anxious, feeling hopeless, feeling small and disconnected, like these internal experiences have been so normalized for us that we don't even think that there's an alternative to it. And I'm here to tell you right now there is. If you have beliefs that are leading you to feel that way, that's a really good indicator that it's time to do some internal shifting, time to do some reprogramming. And I'm gonna tell you how. Something else I want to say before I sort of get into like my secret sauce is when you see that you have a belief that's leading you to feel that way, ask yourself who's being served by you feeling that way. And a good sort of, I think, approach to look at that is say, what am I doing because I feel that way? For instance, right, like a way that we deal with despair, a way that we deal with dysregulation and hopelessness is by numbing out, watching TV, online shopping, eating more than we want or need to, right? Consumption. This feeling of dissatisfaction leads us to reach for some sort of easy solution because the truth is that our internal state is desperate for relief, and we will do anything in the hopes of getting that relief, including supporting all kinds of businesses, people who are actually helping to destroy the planet, right? So, it's almost this like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I believe there is no hope. I feel hopeless. I feel desperate. And so I actually reach for help from the very people who are causing me to feel like there is no hope. There is a subtlety to that plugged inness of the old paradigm and supporting the old paradigm. But I really want to just sort of put it on display here. Like, that is what's happening. If you're numbing out by streaming TV shows, on whatever, not only are you supporting a billionaire and a mega corporation that is just extracting wealth from your community and not actually investing back into it, but you were also then essentially becoming the words that are coming to mind are like disabled robot or like, I mean, if that is how you are spending your time, then you are not a threat to the old paradigm. You will not have the time and inclination and the wherewithal to be a new human who helps to co-create a new earth. Yeah, ask yourself, like, who is being served by this? And if it's not me, if it's not the collective, it's not the planet, again, that's a really good sign that that's a place to look at. And I am here to tell you right here and right now that your life can feel good on your body and your heart and your soul. This existence can feel good on your body and your heart and your soul. Just like really feel that. There are people profiting off of your belief that that is not true. U.S. banks contribute 33% of fossil fuel financing globally, amounting to a total of $289 billion in 2024. When you open an account at a bank and deposit your money there, your bank turns around and uses your money to make more money for itself. Banks like JP Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup are heavily invested in fossil fuel financing and have been increasing that financing since 2022. These banks are also invested in fossil fuel expansion plans, which essentially means they are invested in decades of further fossil fuel dependence. Together, JP Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo provided 21% of global fossil fuel financing in 2024. But here's another way you may be unwittingly supporting the oil and gas industry: your credit card. Issuing credit cards is a common bank lending activity that relies on deposits from consumers like you and me. Credit cards are super profitable for banks because they can triple dip or make consumers pay up to 3 times to use their credit cards. First, banks often require consumers pay an annual fee, regardless of whether they actually use the card. Revenues from annual fees more than doubled between 2015 and 2022, from $3 billion up to $6.4 billion. Second, consumers pay higher prices every time they make a purchase. Credit card swipe fees added more than $160 billion in bank revenue in 2022. That's up from $66.5 billion in 2012. Swipes typically amount to 2 to 4% of the purchase price, and these swipe fees tend to be merchants' highest operating cost after labor. And often, these expenses are baked into prices and passed along to consumers. Third, banks require consumers to pay high interest rates on their credit card balances. Interest charged on credit cards by major banks totaled $105 billion in 2022. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, credit cards have never been this expensive. The nation's 25 largest card-issuing banks charge interest rates 8 to 10 percentage points higher than the rates charged by credit unions. And surprise, surprise, the bank leading the way in fossil fuel financing is also the leading credit card issuer. By far, Chase has issued more credit cards than any other banking institution, with more than 149 million Chase credit cards in circulation. The next largest issuer is Capital One, with 106 million cards in circulation. Here's what's interesting about this to me. In 2024, Chase reported total annual revenue of $177.6 billion. 43% of that came from consumer and community banking, which includes credit cards and consumer bank accounts. That means that in 2024, Chase saw annual revenue of $76.3 billion thanks to us. This number dwarfs the $53.5 billion Chase invested in the fossil fuel industry in 2024. What that means is that ordinary consumers like you and me are bankrolling continued and growing investment in the fossil fuel industry by using credit cards issued by banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup. Here's some alternatives. Get a credit card through your local credit union. Credit unions tend to charge lower interest rates on outstanding balances, and they also tend to support local initiatives and invest in their communities rather than investing in fossil fuel projects. Another option is to use cash. Paying with a card feels so convenient, particularly in our e-commerce era. But what you're trading for that convenience is higher prices, higher interest rates, higher taxes for your local businesses, and more data collected on you and your activities. Consider getting into the habit of carrying cash and paying with it when possible. Let's opt out of supporting banks who are financing our continued dependence on fossil fuels with every purchase we make. All right, New Humans fam, let's get back into the episode. All right, so what's the secret sauce? All right, Queenie, I get it. What's the secret sauce? All right, here's what it is. So we know that humans can be programmed, right? And we know that they can be reprogrammed too. I mean, something that was fascinating to me was watching during COVID. It was like overnight, people were wearing masks, right? And, I don't want to get into the mask, no mask debate, but the important thing was that one day people were not wearing masks and the next day they were. And even to the point of having very strong opinions about it. I had a couple friends. They were friends who were a couple. I never know how to describe that. But they straight up stopped spending time with me for 6 months to a year because I made kind of an offhanded comment about COVID. And when we finally had the opportunity to talk about this, I was like, well, I mean, that wasn't a serious comment. It wasn't my stance on COVID. And again, that doesn't matter. But the point is that people's feelings about this were so important and so deep that these people who were close friends did not see me for a year because I made a comment, So it's just, we can be reprogrammed. And where empowerment lies is in taking control of your own programming. I know that you've probably already started observing your own thoughts, and that's great and necessary. But here's what I want you to do as well. Recognize that the beliefs that you hold, regardless of where they came from, the beliefs that you hold now, you hold by choice. And any beliefs that you continue to hold that do not serve you, you continue to hold by choice. And any beliefs that do serve you, that you're not holding, you can choose to have. So here's the magic words. I choose to believe. I choose to believe. I choose to believe that my life can feel good on my body and my heart and my soul. I choose to believe that there is a future for the collective and this planet. I choose to believe that this planet is populated with good-hearted, well-intentioned, kind people who are helping to build a better future. I choose to believe that I am one of those people, or whatever. If you have some situation in your life that like you're not sure how it's working out, right? I choose to believe that I can have a healthy, supportive, functional relationship. I choose to believe that I can have a beautiful home. I choose to believe that I can find a job or a way of earning income for myself that feels good and dignified and supports me and my family. I choose to believe. Part of what you're doing when you say, I choose to believe whatever it is you are telling yourself and the universe that I am open to seeing this. I am open to welcoming this into my reality. I am open to you showing me how incredible and magical you can be. You know, I may have been closed off to these possibilities, to seeing these things, but I am open now. I am choosing to let this into my reality. But remember that you need to co-create with the universe, right? You are a co-creator with the universe. So tell it you're open, but you also have work to do. You also, as you're going through your life, need to ask yourself, what would it be for me to be a person who believes this, right? So just to take this example, right? Like, what would it be for me to be a person who believes that my life can feel good on my body and my heart and my soul? How would I respond to this situation? What kinds of things would I do differently in my life, right? And I think even more subtly, right, is becoming aware of your internal reality and your internal experience, what it feels like to be in your body, and see if you can't recalibrate that to be more consistent and in alignment with that belief. Again, to take the same example, if you're choosing to believe that your life can feel good on your body and you're actually feeling a lot of internal tension and anxiety, what is it that you need to do to shift that? It could actually be, I can just let this go. I can just let this go. We get stuck in these like habitual patterns, and it's almost like we don't even realize it sometimes. What is it like to feel joy? What is it like to feel peace and contentment? When have I felt that? Can I bring that experience back into this present moment? And can I just practice holding that? What would it be like to be a person who believes that there is hope for the future? How would that person respond to this moment? How would that person move in this life? What kinds of actions would she take? How would she spend her time? And move accordingly. And so, what will happen as you do this is the universe will show you more things, different things, and you will have the opportunity then to notice and to act differently. And as you go through, you will then sort of have that opportunity to build the habit of being a person who believes that and let go of the habits of being someone who doesn't believe it. And as you continue moving forward, eventually, like as you practice, you won't have to do it so consciously anymore. It will just sort of become part of your being until you just are living that reality, right? And I'm not trying to say that this is always easy. I think taking control of your own reality is so empowering. To go back to the old paradigm, sort of being plugged into the old paradigm, right, through anxiety and desperation and all of that, right? There is no deeper form of hijacking a person and their life force than that situation that we were talking about earlier, where you just feel so desperate that all you can do is just reach for anything that you think will calm that desperation, whether it be streaming a show, online shopping, numbing out in some other way, buying that new thing. And you deserve more than that. And we all deserve more than that. So, this, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but like, this is the pathway to liberation, is taking control of your programming. And it's fun. It's fun, especially for anyone who's like just waking up, who's like been living in this perception of reality where, you grow up, you go to school, you get a job, you find your partner, you buy your house, right? Like that sort of life path is, frankly, from my perspective, like it feels like death. It's like, what's going to happen before it happens. Why even bother in some ways living this life if you sort of already know what it's going to look like, right? Like the fun of being alive is like not knowing what's going to happen. It's kind of this like, I don't know. I mean, like for me, like my understanding of sort of like why we're here and what this is like the whole point is to not know. That's where the adventure comes in. That's where the excitement comes in. That's like why the veil exists, is to get to experience the mystery, the unfolding of it all. When in fact what we are is just manifestations of consciousness that knows everything, you know? Like that's where the fun is. But if you've been living in that reality, and, to some extent we all are, because capitalism, capitalist culture views this whole reality as effectively dead resource, static, to be taken advantage of. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why we're so terrible to other people is like we just see them as resources, right? If you have been living in that reality, you might be hearing me and again thinking to yourself, like, Queenie, you are delusional. But you know what? The universe does not waste its magic on people who aren't willing to see it. So you might actually say to yourself, I choose to believe that this existence is magic. I choose to believe in miracles. I choose to believe that the universe is actually like plotting constantly to blow my mind. And if you like are able to figure out how to get into that headspace, it will. It will on a daily basis if you let it, and like it'll have fun with you too. It'll love blowing your mind if you're like open to it. It's those stories you hear about, like, you can't make this stuff up. It's like, no, you can't, but the universe can. I pointed at this in a prior episode, right? But it's like the rational mind, which is where we live most of the time, right? It's like it can't begin to understand all of the sort of orchestration that the universe does in order to make this, right? I mean, that is like literally why we have all of the different like academic subjects that we have. That is literally why we have science, is we're like, how does this thing work? And we're still figuring it out. But the universe is like, I know, I know, it's crazy. Let me tell you, let me blow your mind, And if you allow yourself to be open to that, you'll start to see it. And it's real fun. So, my invitation to you is over the course of the next week, as you're going about your day, take some time to reflect and see, like, if you can identify if you have any beliefs that just aren't serving you. Do you have beliefs that cause you to feel despair, hopeless, stuck, heavy, limited? Do you have beliefs where you're just like, I don't know. I I I can't deal with whatever this thing is because I feel like there is no solution here. There's no hope here. And once you find that, ask yourself who that's serving. I mean, I'm gonna guess it's not you. And then once you've sort of identified these beliefs that aren't serving you, see if you can find a replacement that does. See if you can find a replacement that does. And then once you've found that, take a minute to just get centered and grounded, whether that be meditation or just some breathing exercises, or I don't know, maybe you just live there. Good for you if that's the case, right? But just get centered and grounded. And then I want you to say, and just say it right into the depths of your being, I choose to believe whatever it is. And then practice living that way. As you go through your day, look around you and sort of say, like, now that I believe this, what am I seeing? How do I look at this world differently now? And what different am I seeing? How do I move differently? How do I step into being a person that has this belief? What sorts of changes, what sorts of different kinds of things might I want to do with my time, my mental energy, my internal sort of environment? And if this, applies to you, if you're feeling pessimistic about our future, maybe that's where you start. I choose to believe that there is a better future possible, and it is happening right now. It is being built right now. And I am actually a co-creator of this better future. Even just saying that, I notice my body feels nicer. Mm. Yeah, it's incredible. I'm just gonna remind you, like, hmm, this life, it doesn't have to feel this way. It doesn't have to feel hard. It doesn't have to feel desperate. It doesn't have to feel anxiety-ridden and dysregulated. Those things happen for sure. But this, like, baseline dysregulation, this baseline disconnection, it doesn't have to be like that. And we don't have to continue agreeing that it has to feel that way, because it doesn't. I choose to believe that this life can feel good on my body, my heart, and my soul for all of us. Okay, all right. So if you do this exercise, I want to hear about it, okay? Leave a comment, DM me, whatever it is. I want to hear about it. I had some folks share with me over the weekend, some of their reactions to this podcast, and like, it just lit me up. So let me hear from you. All right, New Humans fam. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the New Humans for New Earth podcast. My name is Queenie. If you found this episode to be inspirational, helpful, empowering, funny, joyful, if it left you feeling just a little lighter and brighter in your day, thank you so much for sharing it to your social media and tagging us. Share it with your friends, your partner, a family member, or anyone that you love. If you loved this episode, thank you for leaving a review. And be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. This is how we grow the New Humans community and help inspire others to join us in co-creating New Earth. This world is what we make it. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.